Should you work for free in comics? Well, this is a weird question, but it comes up a lot with comic creators and people who are doing indie comics or crowdfunded comics. Should you work for free? This sounds like a weird question, but there's actually a lot to it. Let me go into it. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. This is one of those topics that is either like the video of the year or nobody cares. Probably nobody cares. But there's an interesting aspect to doing comics, and by what I mean by comics is doing something you love. If you're a true believer in whatever it is you're doing, comics or you're selling lumber or carpet or I don't know what it is you're up to in your life, there is a belief or a knowledge or an understanding that you should work for free. Now, you might say that makes no sense. Why would you work for free? If it's something you love, you should be paid for it, and this is capitalism and all the rest. But there's this weird kind of undercurrent of popular hobbies or culture, whatever it is, that if it's something you really, really love, then it's about the passion, it's about the project, it's not about the money. And that sounds good. It makes for good movies, and people make little stories about the really inspired poor person who invents something really, really cool. They make no money and they die poor, but they're really, really happy because their life is so rich and everything else. And that all sounds nice in a movie, but if you're actually living that life, it kind of sucks. I mean, there's not really a lot of value to living as a poor pauper and to basically be rich in spirit, not in life. If you're having to like scrounge for cash and you're constantly wondering if you'll be able to feed yourself this month and everything else, are you going to get kicked out of your apartment? That sounds like it's a nice movie. It's a nice thing to watch. It's a nice thing to read. It's not a nice thing to live. Nobody likes to live that lifestyle. And yet in comics, for whatever reason, there's almost like a badge of honor. Like, hey, you kind of have to suffer in order to be a true artist, in order to be a true person in comics, in order to truly be a committed, devoted comic person, you need to be able to suffer your way through life. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's nonsense. If you think, it's one thing to watch a Netflix special about a poor person who suffered through life and delivered something wonderful. You're the viewer. You're the person watching that. You're not the person suffering through that. Trust me, suffering through that is not a lot of fun. It looks really cool in a 90-minute Netflix film. It's not so cool when that is your life for 40 years. 40 years is longer than 90 minutes. It sucks. So you should get paid for what you do. And a lot of people use that idea of, hey, it's a passion project, so therefore money is secondary. They use that as a way to manipulate you into, you guessed it, not getting paid. And the reality is you need to get paid. Now, again, this may sound really obvious to a lot of people, maybe 95% of you. I hope 95% of you. But there's 5% of you right now that's hearing this going, holy crap, yes, absolutely, he is right. Because you have been, that 5% of you have been in the situation where an editor or writer or somebody in the comic industry or somebody has come up to you and said, hey, don't worry about the money. This is going to be you'll get a name for yourself. You get a lot of exposure. Think of all the exposure you'll get. There's been a lot of kind of big name comic creators, including, Mark Miller, not Mike Miller. Mark Miller, the Netflix guy, Mark Miller, not Mike Miller, the guy who, had a weird signature on a piece of art that wasn't his. Mark Miller. That's going to sound like shade to some people, but whatever. It's weird that sometimes people get a lot of heat for things in the comic industry. And I know this is right now, I'm earning myself several downvotes. That's fine. But people get, there's these little wars that go on within the comic community. And what's weird is I often look at these wars and I'm going, well, I don't like this person, but that's not the reason I'm pissed at him. I mean, I have that with like almost everyone in the comic industry. Like the things that I'm really irritated about are never the things other people are irritated about. Whatever. That went off track. Anyway, my point is Mark Miller, guy who wrote Civil War. It's very late at night, so I admit right now, off the offshoot, you should know I'm tired. Anyway, he did a contest, and the contest was, hey, you can draw, some art for my comic book, and the prize is you get it printed in the comic book. And that sounds cool if you're basically have no comic book experience, everything else. The idea of getting printed in a comic book is kind of cool. Wizard magazine used to do that, or like you could send them arts and they would print it in Wizard magazine. But there it was like a fan submission contest. And it was very different from saying we're going to put some, splash page pinup style art in this comic book. That's a very different proposition. So I think that and that action got a lot of heat because it was basically, hey, do a bunch of art for us. We'll pick the best art, and then we'll print it in the comic book, and we won't pay you. And your reward is you get some art in a comic book. That's lousy. I mean, by any stretch of imagination, that's uncool. And you may be, as an artist, you may be cool with that. But I will tell you, if you're an up and coming person, you want to have a career in the comic industry, don't ever give away anything for free. Your work has value, and your value equals cash. And if you're not getting cash, you're giving your work away for free. And you should be really, really selective of what work you give away for free. If you do, it should be wholly and entirely your choice. It should not be some business proposition where you do some work and it's for exposure, and that's the deal. You don't actually get cash, you get exposure, because people will do the exposure game until you die. And this is nothing, I feel like I'm bagging on one guy, Mr. Miller there, but Miller there. But doing work for nothing means your work is worth nothing. And that sounds like a really harsh way to say it, but it's true. If you're going to work in the comic industry, if you're going to work in any industry, get paid. Have what you do, your effort, equate to monetary value. That's really, really, really important. And by the way, this advice is always one of those things that sounds like it's like, that's kind of nice advice. I don't really need to pay attention to that. You will kick yourself over and over and over in life if you fall down this trap of giving work away for free. Your work matters. And if your work is not worth enough to get paid for, then do better work. You need to work harder and make it worth something. Or maybe you're working for yourself, in which case you're building your own comic, your own thing, and you're not getting paid, but you're doing it for yourself. You're basically paying yourself. You need to be able to feel at the end of the day that the things you put value in, the things you put investment in, the things you put your time into have worth. And so whatever you do, this is just a bit of advice. Never fall into the trap of giving that part of your life away for nothing. You will always regret it. Always. It's never a good idea. Anyway, this is maybe a short video. It's just a bit of advice, but it's interesting. I get so many people asking me for advice, or they'll send me questions about, hey, I have an opportunity to do some work. And what's weird is this was always true of the indies. And when it's a broke indie startup, everything else, then maybe they don't have money to pay you. So maybe they're giving you equity, maybe they're giving you points on the back end, maybe they're giving you something that's worth money down the road that's not immediate upfront money. Even then, it's dodgy. You should be careful of that. But still, there's a value to work equation there that's working in your favor. What's strange to me is I've heard of late, in literally the last 12 months, the big two, meaning Marvel and DC, offering bits of work under the this will get you exposure, no cash medium. And in some cases, these are assistant editors. These are people trying to solicit some, hey, we have these 2 pages that needed coloring and the colorist can't finish it. Would you like to do us a favor? And then we'll do you a favor. Again, you need to build your networks. You need to be careful. You need to, if you want to work in the industry and you want to have some portfolio pieces, that, you're willing to do in many cases a lot of things you wouldn't normally do. Be careful, because 9 times out of 10, when you give something away for free, it sets your value at free, and you never are able to break out of that. I know so many artists, colorists, inkers, editors, people who have given free work to comics, and they have never, ever made it into paying gigs because they set their market rate at free. And if you set your market rate free, somebody is going to come along later and expect more free, and you never leave it. So consider this a little like cautionary tale, a little bit of warning. It sounds very silly. Like I said at the beginning, or a while back anyway, 90% of you, 95% of you are sitting here going, I don't even understand this video. This makes no sense. What is he even talking about? And then 5% of you are going, oh my God, I totally understand. If you're that 95%, just trust me. Trust me that there's some knowledge here, that there's some advice here that's worth taking. Just trust me and follow it. Look out for yourself. Pay attention. Never give away your value, your services for nothing. Your value, your services, you as a person are worth something. Make sure that you get something for yourself. That's my advice. Hey, leave me a comment below. This either resonated with you, it doesn't, this makes no sense, screw it. Whatever it happens to be, leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts, suggestions, opinions. If you've been in this situation, would love to hear from it. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, ask me questions there, and thanks for listening.